almost everybody that comes out of prison will come out with PTSD because of what they went through on the inside. So Hey loves, so welcome back to my channel, first of all. Second of all, I just filmed an interview all about PTSD with my good friend. His name is Gman. I can't remember the numbers after his name, even though I asked him 3 times. But we started just chit-chatting before we started filming, and the content was getting so good. It wasn't even content, it was just our conversation. So I said, oh my God, I wish we were recording this right now. He said, well, just put on record and we'll keep going. And we were just kind of chatting back and forth. And it was a really informal but amazing informational video. So I'm going to put that in here. I just wanted to come in and I wanted to do a little bit of an intro and let you know I didn't want to start the video in the middle of a conversation and you're like, who is this? So this is our friend Gman, who is an expert on PTSD. I'm going to link all of his information in the description box below. Go follow him. I promise you, you will learn tons from him. Once we get him back to 1,000 subscribers, he will be able to live stream and we can ask him questions in real time about PTSD. Why that is so important to a prison wife or a family member is because almost everybody that comes out of prison will come out with PTSD, with post-traumatic stress disorder because of what they went through on the inside. Here's some information about it. Here is my friend Gman, and make sure you go subscribe to his channel.
Yeah, but like we were saying there, like that's crazy. 213 years, like, you know, you must have this like sort of routine and lifestyle that you get into, right? And for that to change at some point in time is wow.
Yeah, I co-founded Strong Prison Wives with this girl, and within 9 months, her husband was awarded an early release. And she came to me when she got that. He was facing 10 years and he was gone for 2, and then they overturned the whole thing. And she was like, Ro, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she was frantic. And I said, okay, I said, first take a couple of breaths, relax, and think about this. This is what you've been waiting for. You got through all of that. You're going to get through all of this. I think it's like anxiety about anything. You get lost in your head, get tripped up in those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
What you're waiting for. I mean, there's going to be ups and downs, but that's life.
Yeah, for sure. And there's no such thing as good stress either. You know what I mean? Like,
True.
Your body is going to interpret, or your brain is going to interpret stress the same way, whether somebody's got a gun to your head or somebody just gave you $1 million, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, you're going to be stressing regardless. But, and it's funny that you talk about like the sort of, the anxiety around it, you know, the homecoming and everything too, right? Because I remember on my first tour of duty, I was a peacekeeper in Yugoslavia. And like probably about 2 or 3 weeks before coming home, I was starting to get nightmares about coming home. You know, it was crazy. You know, I am like, all I want to do is get home, but now I'm having nightmares about it. What the hell? You know, and I imagine that it's probably much the same way for somebody who's on the inside too, right?
Yeah. And that's my question. Like, what were the nightmares? Was it like, what was it like? Was it about reassimilating? Was it that something was going to go wrong? Was it all the above?
It's like an all of the above thing, Ro. You know, there's that whole sort of how do I fit back into life? Like, how am I going to sort of mesh back into life with everybody else back home? Because life is sort of at a standstill for you when you're deployed. And I guess it's got to be the same way when you're on the inside, right? That your life sort of stops while everyone else's life on the outside and around you continues to function.
Yeah.
And happen. So how exactly I was going to fit into all of that afterwards, you know, I had really come to develop a routine over there and a lifestyle and everything else. And for all of that to change, I mean, that's pretty dramatic too, right? There's so many things, you know, and then, yeah, there's always that sort of bit in the back of your mind, which for me, I think is a lot of PTSD too, but, you know, that yeah, something's going to go wrong, that, you know, you're going to get home and it's just going to go for a shit, you know?
Yeah. Were you together with your wife at that point, or did you have a significant other at that point?
No, at that time, no. My wife and I met during just before my last 2 tours to Afghanistan. So we did a year apart.
Okay.
So
I was just curious because we have a lot of people who, as the outside half, as the person supporting the guy on the inside, or in your instance, the military, they have to deal with a lot of aggression because of that
Yeah.
stress coming from the inside. And it's just his aggressions and his nerves, but it's coming out as control or anger or that's it, we're done after all this time. And she's like, ah. And I could tell you,
Yeah.
it's probably 90% of the people I've worked with, when they get to that point, it happens.
Yeah. Well, and the stats are crazy too. Like, for incarcerated males, in the States anyways, the stats are pretty much the same for combat vets in terms of developing PTSD. It's like 1 in 4 incarcerated males will develop PTSD. And it's, like I said, that's the same thing for those of us who have gone to Iraq or Afghanistan or anywhere like that. 1 in 4 of us will come back with PTSD. But for women, it's even crazier. It's like, it's almost 50%, like 44% of women will come out of incarceration with PTSD.
Wow. Why do you know why such a large difference in those
I,
numbers?
I don't know what it is for the disparity and the gap there. I'm assuming that, I mean, invariably there are, the system isn't meant for women, let's put it that way, I guess you could
Yeah.
say. And so I think that there's a lot more hardships and things that they sort of have to endure.
Yeah.
And not to say that the men don't go through it or anything like that, but it's just the system is inherently sort of geared towards men, you know? So,
Yeah. So let's talk about, why don't you, if it's okay with you, do you want to share a
yeah.
little of your background story and a little bit of about your PTSD? Because I think you are so gifted in talking about it and helping people understand it and helping people work through it because of the things that you've been through. And I think that's where you can help my subscribers and my members the most.
Yeah, for sure. So I was in the Canadian Army for 13 years. While I was in the military, I deployed 4 times. I was a peacekeeper in the former Yugoslavia, and then I did 3 deployments into Afghanistan. Now, on top of that, I was also a cop. Wah, wah. You know what I mean? But yeah, and as a police officer, I went through a lot of stuff too. I worked narcotics, I worked major crimes, street crimes. I've been worked some pretty nasty kiddie porn cases and stuff like that. So I've kind of got it coming at me from all angles. You know what I mean? But the thing with trauma, and like we were talking earlier with stress, is that it doesn't really care why you're getting it or where it's coming from, but you're gonna experience it and it's going to affect you. And traumatic experiences actually affect the brain. They'll shrink a part of your brain. So when that happens, then your synapses and your neurons aren't, you know, they're not firing correctly. You know what I mean? And all kinds of things go wrong at that point in time. But yeah, so mine is combat related PTSD, but people can get PTSD from all kinds of things. Definitely incarceration, car accidents, anywhere. You know what I mean? It's no one is immune to it, you know, and my goal anyways is just to shed some light on it for anybody who's suffering from it, regardless of how they happen to come across it, for the most part.
That's so interesting. I'm such a nerd with anatomy and physiology. And so when you were talking about neurons and all of that stuff, I don't even know if I'm going to edit this part out because I don't know if I can add it into YouTube. I probably can. But I was at the gym the other day, and this guy, I go to a group training gym, and the guy was
Mm.
helping me and my training partner with something. And he's like, he said something. And I said, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Something about like your central nervous system and how it's
Yeah.
overfiring or something. And he explained it, and I was like, oh, I live for this stuff. Like, I want to know what's going on in your body at all times. And he goes, I can only imagine what was going on in your mind the first time you had sex. And I was like, what's that? What's happening now?
Too busy to enjoy it.
Right, right.
But yeah, like it affects so much of your body. And um, like people get all tripped up too with the fact that you know, your brain is sort of your CPU, right? It's sort of controls you, but there's another sort of ball of nerves near your stomach area, and it controls a lot of your emotion and everything else. So things like thyroid issues can mimic PTSD as well. So one of the first things I would suggest to people, whether you think you have it or you're dealing with maybe a loved one or someone you care about, is to educate yourself about PTSD. So that you get to know what it is, what it isn't, more specifically, and then from there is when you can really start making the difference in someone's life.
Here's a question. So PTSD is kind of like OCD nowadays. Like people throw it out just like it's this, this term. Like my dad told me to take out the garbage when I was 5 and I got PTSD, But
Yeah.
like, and I get it. Like your body doesn't know the difference between different stresses. How significant or how traumatic does the event need to be? Does it need to go on for an extended period of time? Like for somebody to develop signs of PTSD, are there different, I'm assuming there's different levels?
It's not that there's different levels, but like the DSM-5, which is like kind of the catalog of mental health issues, they say that the trauma has to be to the point where you feel that your life is going to be lost, someone else's life is going to be lost. It has to be that to that extreme, sort of, in order for the DSM-5 to qualify it as post-traumatic stress disorder. Like it has to be really out there in the world of trauma.
Okay. And we talk about this all the time about inmates having to deal with PTSD.
Yeah.
All the time. They're getting out. So as loved ones on the outside, what signs should we look for with our loved ones while they're inside? And then how can we help them?
PTSD is so weird. Like, it's not like it's just, you experience the incident and then boom, the next day you've got it. Yeah. Right. So, but the first thing you need to be aware of are sort of stressors, things that, where that trauma is going to come from, like if you've got someone on the inside and say something happened to their cellie or they saw something happen, that's when you need to be switched on and start thinking, okay, now there's potential for PTSD to happen, right? Because maybe they witnessed something, or like I said, perhaps maybe they even came close to it themselves. But you need to be aware of what they're going through at that point in time. And then from there, like I said, educate yourself. And then it's sort of, with PTSD, there's that aggression, there's a lack of concentration, patience, and a lack of trust. And these are all sort of very detrimental to a relationship. So what I would say is try not to take it personally. Don't jeopardize or compromise your safety, but don't take it personally. You know what I mean? If they're starting to shut you out, give them time to cool down. You know what I mean? Time and space is crucial. And then if they're going to talk about stuff, this is more for, I doubt they would probably get into this shit on the phone with you. You know what I mean? But when they're out, if they start opening up about something, shut down whatever you have going on and make them the focus of what's happening. Because I can tell you from being a soldier, and that sort of tough guy mentality, that you don't talk about shit, you know what I mean, ever. And if somebody is willing to talk about it, let it happen, facilitate it, you know what I mean?
That's such good advice. What about preparing for when they come home, knowing that they're going to have PTSD? Is there anything that you can think of that we should do or that'll help?
I think what the biggest thing to do is to try to pay attention to them and not force things. Don't force the issue. Sort of let them call the shots for the first little bit and just get a feel for what they're like, because you mentioned it earlier, is that there's this like new normal, right? And PTSD, it sort of, you find yourself slipping into these patterns of unhealthy behavior, right? And that is what becomes your new normal. So when they come home, be watching for stuff like addiction issues, things like that. Watch out for that sort of lack of patience. Maybe the smallest thing will set them off. And eventually you can start to learn their triggers, and stuff like that, and then you can sort of plan around those. But one of the biggest things I'll tell you is to keep a notebook. It's helped me a lot in my dealings with PTSD. But if you keep a notebook of how things are going, it really helps to have um, um, this day-to-day catalog of behavior. And once you have that, then you can see the patterns, and it just makes it so much easier to identify what those triggers are going to be. Um, because triggers could be even dates, times of the year, stuff like that, right? And you're going to start to see that pattern eventually over a period of time. Don't expect to see it over the course of like 2 weeks. You got to stick with this for like a month, 2 months, right? But it's definitely a worthwhile sort of endeavor to involve yourself in.
Yeah, I love that. And if there's anything a prison life knows how to do, it's how to write. So I think that we can get people to keep a journal for a month.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And
Okay.
there's also like there's good websites out there too. One place that I've always turned to for help when I've been really low it's called 7cups.com. And it's free, 24/7 private mental health care advice. So whether it be addiction, suicide stuff, all these sort of things that stem out of PTSD, even if you're a caregiver, um, you're going to sort of benefit from that, having that sort of support. Because also as a caregiver, remember that if you are too stressed out or you're too tired, you're exhausted, you're not going to be able to provide the support to that person in your life. So remember, please, to take time for yourself.
I love that. I love that because there is a caretaker burnout is real. I was there when I was
Yeah,
taking
it's
care of my
huge.
mother when she was dying, and oof, that was rough.
They're really good. Like I said, it's free, it's private, and it's 24/7.
Okay. And that's available to people worldwide.
Worldwide, yeah. And they have
Awesome.
like apps for your phone. You can access it on your computer, anywhere basically. You can hook up with it.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to shift gears for 1 sec, unless you have
Sure.
anything else about PTSD you want to talk about.
No, that's good.
Okay. So I am sure the burning question among my wonderful subscribers is how a former police officer became
Mhm.
such a voice, and you're so pro inmate and you're so supportive on my videos and other people's videos who were formerly incarcerated, who are pushing for that kind of stuff. So tell us a little bit about that.
For me, it's a lot of it boils down to one of the first guy I ever arrested actually killed himself. Um, and it was because I arrested him and what he was facing. And it happened to me in a small time frame. I had 3 guys kill themselves after I had dealt with them or arrested them. And it really led me to think that, what these people are facing is pretty tremendous, uh, and jail. I mean, it should be a punishment, you know what I mean? But not to that extent. Um, you know what I mean? Your loss of your freedoms, that's the biggest punishment ever, that a free human being can experience. Um, and so I sort of I understand that aspect of it. And then there was also the fact for me that afterwards, when people get out, did 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 they change? Did my interaction with them uh, and the results of that interaction, did that help them change for the better? Um, and so there were a lot of things that brought me into sort of this world of inmates in prison life. Um, and I don't know, I want to see people do better, and like I said, PTSD is something that it affects everyone and anyone, um, and it, the only way to beat it is together. It's not something you can do on your own. And if I've been there, I've been in treatment for well over 7 years now. And if I can reach back and help pull somebody up to where I'm at now, I don't care where they're coming from. I just want to see them up. You know what I mean? Society functions much better when people are healthy and doing well. Um, and the other thing is too is that with PTSD, it's like addiction, suicide. There's all kinds of shit that stems from it, and it just creates a cycle. You know what I mean? And people can end up right back in the system again. I have no interest in seeing that.
That's amazing. I love that. I wish everybody had such an open heart and such an open mind. And I don't want to keep you too long. I know it's late. I can't thank you
No, it's all good.
enough for coming on to my channel. And now I'm going to be selfish for 1 second and tell
Sure.
everybody watching this that you need to, I'm going to put all of Gman's information in the description box below, and you need to go subscribe to him. And I'll tell you why. First of all, the content is amazing. And second of all, because once he gets to 1,000 subscribers, which I think we should both fight for 5,000 by the end of the year. I want 10,000 by the end of the year, but then he can live stream and we can go on live streams and you guys can have these kinds of conversations with him and ask him questions in real time, because I can't think of all the questions for everybody. But these are things that you can help people so much with, and you're so knowledgeable. So you guys make sure you go over there, you subscribe. Is there anything else that you want to say or anything else you want to talk about?
Ro, it's been a pleasure finally getting to say hello to you and talk to you one-on-one. My hat's off to you. I have a lot of respect for you. You're a very smart and strong individual and very independent. And these, again, are characteristics that I don't think we see too often in people these days. And I'm happy to see it in you. And, you know, I think Adam is very fortunate to have you in his life. And I hope that one day, you know, he comes home and you guys can write a new chapter in your book together.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been such a crazy, emotional, up and down day. I'm like sitting here trying not to cry as you're talking. Thank you.
Hey, no worries, Ro. And again, I appreciate you having me on. And anytime there's something comes up with PTSD or anything, you can always send your people my way if they have questions, or just hit me up. You know what I mean? Anytime.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to have you back on anytime you want to come on. It is open to you, but you guys make sure that you go over and you subscribe to his channel as well, because you need to start live streaming again. I can't wait.
Thank you, Ro.
Of
I
course.
can't wait either.
Of course. Yeah, we'll get you there.
Yeah.
All right.
You guys keep staying strong, keep loving strong, keep supporting one another through this journey, because you're one day closer to it all being behind you. Lots of love from my heart and Gman's heart to all of yours. I'll see you beautiful ladies and gentlemen in the next one. Bye guys.